Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of Between Two Beards. I'm the first beard, Rob Schuh. That's the second beard, Randon McMahon. We are going to be talking about the 49ers tonight because the Niners are riding the hot streak. Everyone in San Francisco is celebrating. People are maybe crowning some people a little early, but it is a level of excitement that I feel like goes back to the run we had last year, the 2019 season. There are all sorts of vibes happening right now amongst Niner faithful. How are you feeling this fine win Wednesday, one day prior to another game?
Fantastic, man. This last weekend was my first weekend checking out the Niners bar here in DFW.
Nice.
For the first time this year. I've been normally I go out with my brother to watch football, and he's not a Niners fan, so he's like, "Can we watch other games too?"
Right.
So we usually go to other spots, but now my brother was in Japan. I was by myself. I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go to the Niners bar and watch out." So there was like over 100 Niners fans there. They raffled off some good prizes. I did not win anything. But there was a Deion Sanders signed Niners jersey. There was a Fred Warner jersey. So some good stuff there. Yeah.
Deion Sanders signed jersey. That's a rarity, man. Rarity. I'll tell you, there was a childhood me that was not okay with how he abandoned. I was a teenager at that point, but how he abandoned us after that 94 season, I would have wanted to burn that jersey, but I have since come back around and welcome Deion back into the fold as an alumni of the Niners.
Yeah. It's
absolutely,
it's something cool there. So yeah, it was fun. I mean, obviously the blowout win, and they kind of have it like almost like a soccer style feel to it. Like every first down, they have a chant. They chant after every touchdown, after every turnover. They have a song. Like they have all these different songs, and everybody sings. It's pretty sweet.
That's fantastic. That sounds like a much better environment than I have, which is like 50-50 Seahawks and Niners fans. There is a chance that I may have an opportunity to sneak on up to Seattle. I mean, I may think twice of it and just stay home because that's a long jaunt up there unplanned. But I don't want to be watching with any Seahawks fans, so I will be watching at home if I am staying here in Portland because they surround you everywhere you go. I want to say what's up to people that are here in the chat. Appreciate everyone coming in. Raphael 5629ers always doing the good deed, encouraging people to like and subscribe to the channel. Coming in to say good evening to myself, to Randon the Sneakerheads, and everybody. Beast Mode Gaming coming in. Chris Royal coming in. We got Treasure Kisses in the house. Alan Eliza coming in. Any news about Purdy's oblique injury? Just reading up on it today. I'm interpreting this as gamesmanship, but I would be willing to wager a large amount of money that Brock Purdy is going to play tomorrow. So it's still being listed. He was a limited participant in practice, was the official designation coming out today, but I fully expect him to play. Randon, what's your take? Shanahan always seems to love a little bit of gamesmanship, particularly around injury designations.
He's a gamer. I mean, I expected him to be questionable. It's 4 days. It's an oblique injury. Like, he was limited in practice. Like, it's all signs that he was going to be listed as questionable. So nothing out of the ordinary. It's not like he was listed as doubtful or he's going to be warming up to test it or anything like that. Like, none of that stuff has come out yet. So right. I'm not worried. And like, how crazy would it be for, a little Josh Johnson 3-touchdown game if we had to go that route? It seems on par with the Niners season just to throw another person back there. Yeah.
It does. Just allow Josh Johnson to cook if need be. We got the Stivers Niners 209 show coming in. Tom Bragg in the house. Peter Lee coming in. What's up, Rob and Randon? Can't wait for tomorrow. A whiteout Niner blizzard will freeze the sea chickens to sleep. Yes, the Niners are wearing their white unis on Thursday night. Those are clean. Randall Riley coming in as well. Sneakerhead here on the channel. A lot of sneakerheads here on the channel. Jason Lewis is one of them saying hit that like button. I'll tell you what. We got Sean 951 Niners in the house. Charles Alt coming in. Daniel Garcia. Russell Peterson. Hello to all. And we will get to any questions that you have in the chat as well. Just hit me with the @Rob or @Randon if you're asking Randon on that one. Let's get into our topics here. The Niners are on a 6-game win streak, in case you were not aware, Randon. 6 games in a row. Looking back at the Niners, when we were sitting there at 3-4 after being completely outmatched against the Chiefs, could you have predicted this run? Were you looking there saying, you know what? Yeah, we lost this one, but we are about to go on a tear, and we don't even need Jimmy Garoppolo to do it?
No. I didn't think we'd go on this much of a tear, especially losing Mosley as well. I'm like, okay, is the defense going to drop off the table? I'm not saying the defense got better, but they've stayed level, right? We got Armstead back, which has helped a lot.
Huge.
And I think the biggest thing for me was that Jimmy was never a person that had like 3 games in a row with no turnovers, right? It was just like short little spurts, and we were gonna have to rely on the defense. But he played extremely well. I think it was 4 straight games without a turnover. Our turnover differential is quite well.
Yes, it is.
The Niners are tied for 4th in the league at +6. So that's strong there for us. And so like, I didn't expect them to go, but now after seeing this team cook, I did predict them to go undefeated to end the season.
You did, and so far that's coming to fruition.
And I am not backing down with BCB at the helm. I'm staying strong with the Purdmeister, throwing all those tugs. He's got the moxie to do it, and I'm staying kilter with that.
Doubling down on the wager. I love it. You always double down. Always double down. Yes, that's fantastic. Nor had I predicted this outcome. Quite honestly, I was fairly dejected after that Chiefs game, and it makes this win streak all that much sweeter, man. I felt the same way about the run last year, where we were sitting there at 3-5, and it felt like the season was over, hadn't even reached the halfway point, and all of a sudden, no, this team battens down the hatches, bands together, and rises to the occasion. It feels as if they are doing that again this season, and that gives you some hope about what this team is made up of. The core of it is able to stay together through those tumultuous times, and I do believe that Coach Shanahan deserves credit, because it's easy in the NFL, a bunch of grown men, professionals getting paid millions of dollars. It's easy for them to check out at some point and make business decisions. On to next season, right? This one's a waste. I'm not going to lay my body on the line for this squad. And the Niners have not historically fallen apart like that, save for some seasons where they were decimated by injury. So I do think Shanahan deserves a ton of credit for that.
I think the credit goes to him making adjustments, right? We haven't known Shanahan to be the number one guy to make adjustments. It's usually his way or the highway. And I'm sure he loved when Brock said, yeah, I just do what he tells me to do. Right. So
yeah,
Shannon's like, yes, you do.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think the biggest thing we talked about it is the trade for Christian McCaffrey. The only way this trade was going to be effective is not as a running back, but as a receiver. And will Shanahan utilize him as such? Will they target the running back out of the backfield, put him in the slot, give him 2-way goes? Because he's a great route runner. I mean, there's some podcasts that I've seen that say he's a better route runner in short yardage than Deebo Samuel. So
that's wild.
You're looking at he could definitely outcook most linebackers in the league, if not all.
Oh, easy.
And so you're looking at this like, okay, will Shanahan utilize him the way he needs to be utilized? Not only for him to get the most out of him, but to make this trade worth it, right? So like the trade, I thought just for a running back, if McCaffrey was just going to a slight upgrade over Mitchell as a running back,
right,
and they didn't utilize him in the passing game, the trade was going to be useless.
Yeah,
they needed to really utilize that, and I think they have done that so far. Like I think he's averaging something like 7 or 8 targets a game, which is what he needs.
Yeah, I mean, he is an extremely effective route runner. It's pretty remarkable to watch him go out and make catches. It is as glorious as watching a wide receiver, and then you can get him running through the tackles as well. Chris Royal coming in with the super chat here says, we both thought 11-6, speaking of myself and Chris, by the end of the year. 13-4 might be in our grips. I think we're winning out as well, Randon. Randon, you have converted another follower into the win out belief. I don't think it's far-fetched. The only way in which, I mean, let me just be clear. We are better than each of the remaining opponents on the schedule. We should win out. The only reason I could see the 49ers not prioritizing that is if for some reason one or two of these games just don't matter. If Minnesota does win out, then the last game, week 18, may not matter. Otherwise, we're in the running for the second seed within the playoff standing. So even if we get the NFC West, which we can do tomorrow by beating Seattle, we still most likely will have reasons to play. That would be the only thing that would get me off of believing we can win out. So you've converted Chris, and I'm pretty sure you've converted me as well. Let me just say that this run of 6 in a row has come at a cost.
Does that matter for you? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Does that matter for you? Because right now the standings look like either Washington or New York Giants, depending on where they fall and then where we fall. Do either of those teams feel like an easier matchup?
The only reason I would chase the second seed is for that second home playoff game. The idea that you can ensure you host the second week of the divisional playoff game beyond the wild card weekend. That's the advantage to me. But no, matchups wise, there are very few teams in the NFC that I fear in the playoffs. I think the real contender is Philadelphia. And if they advance, we're going to have to go into Philly to play them. I think. I haven't done the math. I suppose they could go on a losing streak and we could surpass them as well. I don't think that's likely. So I think the only team I fear, and I don't fear them, the only team I would be cautious of is Philly. And I think we're going there.
Going into Philly for the NFC Championship game would be a good test for sure.
It would be a phenomenal test, and it would be a phenomenal game to attend as well. Randon, we would have to do everything we could to be there. That's what I'm saying.
Or the Cowgirls beat them in the second round, and we host the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys.
That would be pretty sweet.
But one game at a time. No more crystal balling.
There are. All right. So what I was leading into, a lot of injuries there. Absolutely. The Niners, over that 6-game win streak, have piled up, and we are running out of those IR spots because we can't bring any more players back. We have just 2 IR return spots available, and they're earmarked for Elijah Mitchell and Javon Kinlaw. So we're holding people on the roster. Out of the 7 inactives for tomorrow's game, 6 of them are players who can't play. Jimmy Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel, Hassan Ridgeway with the pec injury, Kevin Givens with the knee, Tavarius Moore with the knee, and Womack with the concussion. So 6 out of the 7 players that will be on the sideline are injured for the Niners. Like it's getting thin in there. I am hoping for a healthy game coming out of Seattle. But one of those injuries that we want to talk about is Deebo's injury. It's Deebo Samuel, so that's obviously a big deal. It's being touted as 3-ish weeks right now. That's the technical term, 3-ish weeks for the length that he'll be out, meaning he could return for the Arizona game in week 18 if that game does matter for the 49ers. What are your thoughts on how the Niners are going to make do without Deebo? Who are they going to lean on most in that situation come tomorrow?
It's going to be McCaffrey. McCaffrey probably will get 10 targets out of the backfield is what I would guess. They're going to run the football. I hope Jordan Mason gets in the game before the third quarter because I think they should run the football. And then McCaffrey is going to do all the gadget stuff. Maybe you see Danny Gray get an end around here or there because to utilize his speed. I think they're going to try to do the matchup one-on-one with Ayuk, but I forget the corner's name for Seattle, but I think he's graded as one of the top corners in the league this year.
Yeah, the rookie.
Yeah, and so they might have him plastered one-on-one, which would mean Kittle's going to have to win a lot of his matchups. So maybe you see a lot more targets to Kittle over the middle, utilize, CMC out of the backfield to kind of create a lot of mismatches that way. What do you think?
I hope that they're balanced in how they replace him. I agree that the lion's share is probably going to go to Christian McCaffrey, but my hope would be that they're able to spread the ball out. Kittle, Ayuk, McCaffrey, get Jordan Mason. You've already got McCaffrey dealing with some lingering issues, as is always going to be the case for running backs as you get this far into the season. But Jordan Mason is very fresh. Jordan Mason has a punishing running style. It has been compared at times to a young Marshawn Lynch, and it's probably a stretch to do that this early in his career, but wouldn't it be nice to see a young Marshawn Lynch running through Seattle in a very physical Thursday night matchup? So again, I hope that it is spread around. The one that I'm anxious to see whether they incorporate is Ray McCloud. They have touted Ray McCloud's skill set as being very similar to Deebo Samuel, save for the fact that he's outweighed by Deebo by about 30 pounds. But Kyle Shanahan specifically talked about how Ray would be used in some of that fashion, and that he is a pit bull mentality type of guy where he doesn't care about how small he is or that he's 30 pounds lighter than Deebo. He has the dog mentality of it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. And apparently he's got a lot of fight in him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about him as a gadget type guy. I also wonder about Tevin Coleman because they trust him. They trust him in the backfield for third downs. Maybe you see them use Christian McCaffrey in the slot. They trust Coleman to make the blocks out of the backfield,
right?
And they utilize him a lot more to protect Purdy, and then use McCaffrey's receiving ability.
That would make sense to me. I want to bring in a super chat from Sean951Niners. Appreciate the super chat. Sneakerhead here on the channel says, Rob, the Rams week 8 was the breakthrough. Christian McCaffrey balled out, and that's when the D started balling and believing in the offense with CMC, giving new life and scoring 30-plus points. And special teams also came to life. It was a marked turnaround. Certainly, Christian McCaffrey's arrival has changed this offense. And it feels like steady improvement for me along the defense. Started out amazing, just ravished by injury, climbing back into it, steady improvement. And then same thing for special teams, having started a little slowly, I would say, at the beginning of the year. But since then has really rounded into form. And agreed, the offense just really took off at that Rams game and hasn't looked back, even though we have changed quarterbacks. And that's fairly wild to me.
It is. I mean, it's great. And like I said, that's the biggest thing for me offensively is how they were going to use CMC. And like, I think both things can be true. I think we overpaid for a running back itself, but I think that if Christian McCaffrey changes this offense and we go far in the playoffs and win number 6, nobody's going to care what we gave up for it. But,
yeah.
When you're doing things like what we're doing and is giving analysis there, I think sometimes you overpay for running backs. And I'm a big believer that you shouldn't pay for running backs. You shouldn't give running back second contracts because most of the time they're not worth it, right? I mean, the Niners are going to have to figure out if they're going to keep the $12 million next year. Are they going to extend McCaffrey well into his 30s to lower the cap hit? So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going.
Big question mark.
A lot of stuff's going to be going further on past this year that we're going to have fun talking about in the offseason. But from this standpoint, this year, right? I mean, he's getting paid almost nothing. He's being phenomenal at his job, and nobody's going to care that we gave up all those picks if we go far in the playoffs and win number 6, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like you can pick a side that you want to peer on it, but you can definitely see how he's changed the dynamic of this offense. Kyle has utilized him and changed his offense to fit the pieces a lot better than I think he ever has on the Niners. And this team is really starting to cook, especially it seems like the quarterbacks are almost interchangeable at this point, right? I mean, you're looking at no fall off there between the two games. And I think it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, one more question on the Deebo front before we head to that next topic. Do you believe that the Deebo injury changes anything with the Odell Beckham Jr. situation? Do you think that the 49ers, I mean, I will say T.Y. Hilton was signed by Dallas. I have to think that lessens the chance that Dallas then goes off to sign Odell Beckham Jr. And I always thought Dallas was the most likely landing spot for OBJ. The news about Deebo didn't come out until next day, and it seemed about that time that the T.Y. Hilton deal fell into place. Do you think that maybe both OBJ and the Niners are keeping that door open?
Well, I mean, I think the OBJ thing is he's not healthy.
Yeah, and won't be healthy until at least the start of the playoffs, right?
They said, being out here in Dallas, I mean, it's been exhausting listening to this stuff. And they said that they didn't like the progression of his knee compared to last year. Mostly, he'll probably be ready to run full speed, and take contact maybe in January. So you sign the guy, and he has to get acclimated with his quarterback for what, an NFC Championship game in a Super Bowl?
Right.
At that point, maybe you just say yes to say yes, but I don't think the correlation between OBJ and Deebo has anything to do with it. And like you said, You saw how fast Dallas moved on. They brought in T.Y. Hilton, a guy who hasn't played all year, who hasn't been effective at all in the last 3 seasons, over a guy who showed promise last year, right?
Right.
I think that you're looking at a guy last year that he probably would have been the MVP in the Super Bowl, barring his injury. And, you much rather would have had a guy that has shown promise over T.Y. Hilton. So that it must seem that the injury is a lot worse than is letting on if they're willing to go to a guy like T.Y. Hilton and not wait out CMC, right? They're going to a guy that hasn't played all year, who hasn't shown anything or not CMC, but OBJ. All these acronyms here.
I work in a field that is like so many acronyms. They are exhausting. Odell Beckham Jr.
So that's where my thought process is. Like, if they went to a guy like T.Y. Hilton, then it must be a whole lot worse. And then I think the Niners are out then too, right? I mean, unless they are saying, hey, let's sign him for the Super Bowl, give him 2 weeks, and he can be wide receiver 4 and just another weapon that we can use. Sure. Like, whatever. I don't know what that is, but I'm not holding my breath.
No, I could have seen it as a desperation move if the Debo injury news had been significantly worse. But when Debo's healthy, when the Niners are healthy, the bottom line is at this point, we just don't need him. He doesn't really fit into the offense. By the way, I like James Schaefer's prediction here. Says, Rob, it's Kittle's turn to headline in this one. And that transitions right into Sean 951 Niners super chat on the subject, saying Kittle will have 100+ yards this game. He kills Seattle. Man, I would be stoked for that one. Absolutely want to see us destroy Seattle. I got a lot of pent-up aggression against the Seahawks and against that fan base from that NFC Championship game there when Richard Sherman tipped away the pass from Crabtree. It was such a nasty environment to be in. I just don't know that I will ever forgive the people of Seattle for my experience that weekend.
That's your thing, not mine, my man. I wasn't there.
I'm holding a grudge, my man. All right, let's get into this next topic, talking about Brock Purdy. So he doesn't actually have a noodle arm. I think he has proven that. I think we have to retract that statement from this show. I'd argue what you've seen, he doesn't have a cannon, right? He's certainly not going to be compared to Justin Herbert, but he can make all of the throws around the field. He has enough anticipation and he understands the timing of most plays to wherein even if he doesn't have the cannon to rocket it in there, he seems to throw well with anticipation. So I believe that he's capable of making all the throws. The question becomes, can the Niners continue to win with Brock? Or when we start to get into the playoffs, assuming we make it there, will NFL defenses begin to catch up to him? What's your take on it?
I mean, right now he's doing one. I do think he still has a noodle arm. I mean, any quarterback in the NFL can throw 50 yards. That's not a determination of cannon.
Okay, so your definition of noodle arm may be slightly different from some others. If you can still throw 50, I might argue you don't have a noodle arm, but I get what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, to make it to the NFL, you should be able to throw 50 yards. But like the Ayuk throw, right, was vastly underthrown, and he had time to throw it there. It was still a touchdown, but like it was underthrown by like 6 or 7 yards. Like Ayuk should have caught that on the logo in the end zone with no corner even close to him, right?
Yeah.
Still a positive play, but if that play turns into say that play is an interception instead of a touchdown, would we have the same like, oh yeah, hey man, like he vastly underthrew him and like that's where he struggles, his arm strength and all this kind of stuff like that.
Right.
But we beat the snot out of Tampa Bay, and so nobody really cares that it was a vastly underthrown ball. But to get to your question, I do think we can still win with him.
Yeah.
He does throw with anticipation. He does bet on himself. And I think you look at a lot of the stuff here, he does enough off-script stuff to bail out Kyle Shanahan, right? So if Kyle doesn't call the exact right play and he has to make some moves with his legs, right? The only positive stat that he had at the combine was his 10-yard split. He does just enough to get outside the pocket and make some schoolyard stuff that happened. And you're looking at, okay, yeah, I can do that, right? Like I can do that. I can make this going. I can get this done. And you know, I think that he can get enough of those plays done if Kyle Shanahan makes the wrong thing. But The team's behind him. I'm behind him. I think he's doing well. I mean, the video of his dad crying in the stands and the whole crowd chanting your son's name, man, that's what sports is about. Like that,
it's phenomenal.
it was so great. And I think I was arguing about this with another fan on Twitter for quite some time. Do I think the Niners are favored to win the Super Bowl? No. Do I think they can win the Super Bowl with their defense and Brock Purdy? Yeah, I do. And I don't even think it's like a lottery puncher's chance type thing. I think it's a pretty good chance. They run the football. They've been putting up, I don't know what the average point since CMC's been there, but it's got to be over 25, right? So
yeah,
25
I believe
points
it
per
is.
game. So if the defense can hold, which is the number one defense in the NFL, can hold teams to below 20, we score over 25. I mean, yeah, you can win those games, and I don't think it's even a question mark if they can. I mean, I don't think they're the favorite. I still think the Eagles. I still think as a full team, maybe you take Dak Prescott over Purdy there. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, but you got to like their chance with that defense, and all he has to do is make enough plays to win the game.
That's just it. Because I think after Tampa, it's down even more. But I believe the defense is holding teams to under 16 points a game. And so, yeah, you are in every single game if that's what you're averaging on defense. It's absurd, right? Especially if you have a phenomenal run game that you can lean on. I will say I have faith in Brock Purdy, and I'm excited. I don't know that I'm as hype as a lot of folks are in riding the train confidently. There's a part of me that still wonders if it'll come back down a little bit, right? If NFL defenses will catch up some, because I've watched him take some chances and skate it in there. And my guess is that eventually a few of those go the other way. And to your point, the question you asked earlier, would we have a different opinion if a few of those plays had gone the other way? So I'm absolutely a believer that the Niners will win with Brock Purdy, especially in the regular season. Once we get up against some of these tougher defenses, it's going to continue to be a test. I think we have another test coming up in a very loud environment for Brock Purdy. I want to bring in a couple of comments here first. I got to bring it in. Sean 951 Niners challenging what was said moments ago. Says, Randon, what the fuck? Purdy was under pressure and got smoked on that throw to Brandon Ayuk. I just like throwing in the F-bomb now that we're the late night show. So that one gets on there. 6301 says, Rob Schuh, that's why I think sending Gray down the sideline should be a consideration against Seattle, allowing him to air it out to Danny Gray. Just chuck it up. Let Danny Gray get under it. Thomas B says, Purdy doesn't have a big arm, but he doesn't seem to have a problem getting the ball downfield.
Again, people can keep confusing a big arm with throwing the ball downfield. Throwing the ball downfield. I mean,
what you're talking about is the ability to throw a laser, right?
What I'm thinking is, like, if you are on your back foot and you have to whip the ball into a tight window, or if you have to make a last minute decision on a throw, do you have the arm to get it there? And he doesn't, right? Anybody can throw the ball downfield. Like, people need to stop confusing decision making to throw the ball downfield with arm strength, because those two are not the same thing, right? And so, like, my thing is, like, most balls are not 60, 70, 80 yards downfield. Most balls are below 20 yards. Does he have the arm strength to zip a ball in there last minute if he has to make a split decision? And I don't think he does. He has to throw the ball with anticipation to be successful.
Right.
And I think he is doing that so far.
Exactly. Tom Bragg has hit it here for me as far as the difference for Purdy and how he looks out there, just confident, poised. I think he is able to anticipate it because of just this. Purdy's a perfect example of why guys should do 4 years of college ball. There is no substitute for experience. I used to argue staunchly against that, but honestly, if you play at a big school and you're getting some big money from those endorsements, staying in college may actually start being something that guys do if they're making all sorts of money off of their likeness. All right, let's transition.
What's that?
Go ahead.
So there's a thing, and I think I've heard it on multiple quarterback shows before. There was like the 7 things that quarterbacks need to have for Bill Parcells to draft them, right?
Yes.
And Purdy has all 7, right? So it's like spending all 4 years in college, starting over 30 plus games, winning 23 of those games, having a completion percentage of over 60%, and a couple other things. And he has all 7, right? So, I mean, like, it's not the end all, the be all of great quarterback things, but he checks a lot of boxes. And I think, to be honest with you, if Iowa State, I think they were not as good at his last season as he was his junior season. If he came out his junior season, he might have got drafted higher, right? Because Iowa State was more prominently featured.
Right.
But I mean, he checks off a lot of boxes. And like I said, I think I heard him got compared to Tony Romo today. Tony Romo had a great career. He has a little bit less of an arm than Tony Romo has, but
Yes.
Tony Romo was that kind of like that. He'd make plays out of nowhere, would run around, kind of throw it, and have that moxie. He had a successful career. I wonder if that's something that could happen in his career as a quarterback.
Absolutely. I mean, I am still, to me, the book hasn't been written on Brock Purdy. It's too early for the declarations that I think are coming out at this point. Interesting question from Josh Cook here, Sneakerhead here on the channel, says, Rob, hey, gentlemen, I have a question. I've heard a lot lately. What are your thoughts on NFL games being rigged or outcomes predetermined? Seems unlikely. Yeah, I would squash that personally real quick because of just how difficult it is to try and win in the NFL, let alone try to coordinate a game wherein you say, okay, at this point, we're going to try to force a turnover to the other team so that then they can come back and get up. To me, that's just nonsense. Occam's razor is what I always follow, that the simplest answers are usually the accurate answers, and that's usually the truth. And I truly do believe that they're out there fighting for their lives on Sunday, and it is in no way predetermined.
The conspiracy theorist in me says yes. Some of them can be. There's billions of dollars to be made in the NFL. There's also been a documentary out that about the NBA referee that said they did rig games.
Now, see, that's different to have a ref come in and influence a game. That I can get behind, but I don't buy that is guaranteed to change an outcome. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can influence it, but I don't know that you can control the outcome of a game without looking real obvious.
I mean, you think what was that Saints Rams, where the guy pretty much knocked his head off and there was no pass interference call being made? Do I think
those are the types that person could be crooked, because that fits in the Occam's razor model of like that person took a bribe from someone who's got an enormous bet on the game or whatever the case may be.
Do I think the NFL goes in and says, hey, I want this team to win? I don't think that is it.
No.
Otherwise, the Niners would have more championships, because the Niners are one of the biggest fan bases out there, right? I mean, you would want their fan base to be in it, right? So, but overall, no, I don't think it's a big thing.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Leo R, as am I, very excited for tomorrow's game. Let's use that as the transition into the high stakes in Seattle. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the NFC West is at stake. Well, at least it's at stake for the San Francisco 49ers. A win tomorrow does clinch the NFC West. We're also, as I said earlier, just one game behind the Vikings for that second seed. We actually have the tiebreak in our favor. So got to continue winning and hope that Minnesota proves to be a pretender. Get 2 weeks of home games, potentially, maybe even 3 if someone does us a favor and knocks off the Eagles. This is a quote from Nick Bosa earlier. We're definitely expecting an all-out war, Bosa said. Probably really similar to 19, just really big stakes and 2 teams that know each other really well and don't particularly like each other. Now, I'll remind you, Randon, obviously the Niners handled Seattle all the way back in week 2, 27-7. Do you expect a similar outcome where the Niners handle the Seahawks, or do you expect a physical slugfest that's a little bit tighter tomorrow night?
Anytime somebody says steak, I always think of Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, where he's like, he's having relations with that bigger girl, and he's like, I think this was a mistake. And she goes, did you say steak? And he goes, no, I said mistake.
Good Deuce Bigelow reference.
And 2, you guys in the chat need to slow your roll. Like, everybody's like, oh, because I don't think he has a big arm. Like, I don't think Brock Purdy is going to be effective. I've said it over and over again that I think he could be an effective quarterback with his noodle arm. Fine, his less than better arm. But if you could pick a quarterback that have all the same attributes and one has a good arm and one has a bad arm, like, wouldn't you pick the quarterback with a good arm? Yes, you would, every single time. So, like, don't get at me. It's his physical attribute. It is what it is. He's playing with it. Do I think he can win? Yes, I've said that over and over again. So slow your roll in the chat, guys. I'm not jumping ship off Niners fandom. I'm not rooting against Brock Purdy. I'm just being accurate of his skill set, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I take umbrage with some of the terms that you use, but when you explain what you mean by the terms, I don't. I think you are describing his physical skill set or lack thereof. I am higher on his ability to make more throws than I believe you to be based on those comments, but I don't think that you're saying anything all that far out there, and it is a fairly commonly acknowledged shortcoming for the young gentleman. So getting back to tomorrow night, do you see this as a close one, or do you think that it's going to be Niners similar to week 2? This is just a better team overall.
Yeah, Rob's like, will you just answer the question, man? Man, yeah, the stakes are a lot higher, obviously. I mean, it's more focused. That people didn't think Seattle was anything when we played them the first time, and they've shown that they are a lot better than people thought.
They sure have.
And I really think it's going to be something to kind of clinch. I mean, if you can clinch now, fantastic. That really kind of sets it up for the rest of the season. Obviously, they want to move forward in the standings and have home field advantage. But it's a big deal, right? I mean, you're going into Seattle. It's going to be another statement game. It's going to be on a short week. You're going to not have Debo. You're going to have a less than healthy Brock Purdy, who is making his, an away start into a rivalries type game. I think there is a lot to say there because, Seattle's a lot better than we thought. So, I really think that it's going to be a lot more high stakes. It's going to be a lot more tense. It's going to be more of a playoff style atmosphere from the way the players approach it. And I think it's good. I think it's good that the Niners start getting playoff type atmosphere, right? I mean, I know Purdy played at Iowa State, and the Big Ten there's a lot of loud stadiums that are even larger than where a lot of these NFL stadiums are. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good test for the team. I mean, the defense for Seattle, if you look at them, they're in the positive turnover differential. They're at +2, right? So it's not like they're not effective at turnover the football. Tyreek Woolen is the corner that I was looking for, has 6 interceptions. Without Debo Samuel, you're looking at him. Maybe he shadows Brandon Ayuk, which I'm not saying that he'll lock down Brandon Ayuk because Brandon Ayuk has put cornerbacks in blenders all season long.
Absolutely. He's killing it.
But if you take away an all-pro and Debo, it's definitely going to have an effect in the game.
Yes.
Whether it's minor or major is to be seen. But I think it's going to be a high-stake game. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I do think it's going to be one of those very physical games that it will be closer than it should be because I look at the talent disparity between these two teams, and I think it's very clear that the Niners are a better roster than the Seattle Seahawks. And that 27-7 score earlier in the year is probably fitting for what should transpire. But because of the stakes, because of the fact that it's a potential for us to have one of those t-shirt and hat games on Seattle's field, that is going to just raise raise the ante just a little bit. That in combination with the fact that it is a Thursday night football game so that it's nationally televised. Certainly the players are going to be on high alert for that, but you also get just sloppier games when it comes to Thursday night football. It's not a stellar product. Honestly, the NFL would be better off, in my opinion, without it, but it does give us one more night of watching football. So, I'm all for it. I think that we should probably expect a lower scoring affair, a closer game than we otherwise would have. And I do believe that for me, again, I'm still checking boxes with Brock Purdy, and he checked the box against Tampa Bay. Huge stage for a 1 p.m. game. The stage doesn't get any bigger going up against the GOAT. A full week of preparation for a top 10 defense, and he passed with flying colors. I mean, flying colors. I will say Vita Vea being lost early in that contest, I think made a pretty big difference in Tampa Bay's defense and what they look to do, especially with interior pressure that they would have generated otherwise. But this coming up is a big test for Brock Purdy. People who haven't been to Seattle, it's a weird environment because of that noise. The reverberation through the stadium creates a strange sensation in your chest. Like you can feel the vibrations of people's voices on those key third downs. I do think that comes into play. Very raucous environment. He has experience playing in a loud stadium in college, but Ohio State did lose those 2 games. He has that experience, but didn't come out on the winning end. I fully expect us to win, but I think all those factors make it a closer game than it should be.
I think the locker room also is going to help him through it. I mean, people are going to have his back. I think they're going to prep him for that kind of stuff. But hey, short weeks are short weeks. I mean, I don't think college has that. I mean, do they play college games on like Thursday night? Not for big schools, right? It's like Troy and weird stuff like that. Like, I mean, so you're pretty much on Saturday. You're pretty much getting that full week of preparation. And then not to mention, he hasn't been prepping as the starter, but more than a week, right? So, I mean, you're being, optimistic if you think that he's going to be fully prepared for this. But I do think he's a gamer, and
Yes.
his experience,
certainly a gamer.
His experience playing 4 years in college, playing in the Big Ten, playing at Michigan, and all those types of stadiums is going to get him prepped for the big moment. I think that he's going to have, but we'll see if he's going to be able to kind of play through this injury and be as effective as he was with Tampa.
People continue to want to disprove what you had said or not said. G-Bone Patron, Brock's arm looked fine to me with 2 touchdowns to CMC and Ayuk. Yes, the clarification was, though, that, yes, he is performing, just a matter of strength that we're talking about there. Michael Salazar, this one is interesting. I would say, for me, I actually think that it's pretty comparable between Jimmy and Purdy. I don't know that I give the edge to either one. I haven't seen enough throws from Purdy to say so far. But Michael says Jimmy has a bigger arm than Purdy, but Purdy's willing to sling it more than Jimmy. I certainly agree with the second half of that statement, that he has a willingness to fit it into tight windows, to take some shots. It is actually his willingness to do so that leaves me with one more box to check of, can he continue to fit those passes in there, or will defenders start to catch up on some of those?
I agree with the whole statement.
You're seeing Jimmy's as, yeah. All right.
I mean, so it's not like a large margin, but
no, it's not a large disparity.
It's a margin. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And Christopher Torres coming in to agree. Michael, I don't know that Purdy does sling it more than Jimmy. Oh, saying he doesn't. I actually do believe, if you look at the heat charts, it shows just how he's spreading it out a little bit more. Well, let's talk about just how flawed this Seattle team is, because this is the disparity I'm referencing. They lack balance. Let me give you a few stats about Seattle in regard to DVOA, which is a popular way of looking at the various segments of the team. So top 5 in passing offense, but 23rd in rush offense, 18th in pass defense, 26th in run defense. Then they shoot all the way up to number 2 in special teams. So they're killing it on special teams, Randon, but they are very, very beatable on defense, in particular that run game. And so I view the 49ers as being set up pretty well to take advantage of this. On defense, our defense matches up well against their ability to pass the ball, because we can get after the quarterback. And we certainly have gotten great performances by Mooney Ward, Jimmy Ward playing in the slot, and Diamador Lenore looking fantastic as well. So I'm liking the way in which we match up against that. Do you believe the Niners are going to take advantage of Seattle's weakness, or will the wily Pete Carroll scheme up some damn way to stay in this one?
Man, just looking at the stats, you wouldn't believe it when you're looking at it. But like, starting off with the special teams, I mean, you're looking at Myers has missed 1 kick all season. He's 96% for kicking field goals, and then Dixon 33% of his punts land inside the 20. So they're pinning people back, and their pass defense is good. So like, if they're getting out ahead of games and their pass defense is good, that's how they're winning football games there. And Shanahan's been throwing a lot more since CMC. So I wonder if he'll lean into what he's been doing and not change it to fit his opponent, and saying, hey, we just have better players. We're going to outplay them, and we're going to continue throwing the football to CMC, which I think they should. But will they rely on, I think the big part, which we both agreed upon, is that they need to get Mason more involved in the run game,
yes,
and try to dominate the line of scrimmage early and often, rather than waiting till the third quarter to get him in the game.
Absolutely. They do need to run the damn ball against the Seahawks, take advantage of this mismatch that does exist there, lean on Jordan Mason, and have to give credit on this stat that I'm pulling to David Lombardi of The Athletic. In his article, he writes, over the past 4 games, the Seahawks are allowing 5.7 yards per carry and are ranked 31st in run defense DVOA. So they are getting killed in the run game, and the 49ers are running like gangbusters with maybe one of their best run games this past week. They are set up with Jordan Mason emerging. He went from 4 carries to 6 carries to 8 carries to 11 carries. Let's see if he can't get to 15 in this one. Love Peter Lee's comment that I threw up on the screen just a moment ago. By the way, Niners just arrived in Seattle, and the Niner faithful showed out in the cold roadways to greet them as the buses pass by. Truly faithful. Gotta love the faithful out there showing support in Seattle. All right, here's another topic about the Seahawks and potentially setting up for a good victory for the Niners here. But this is one that I referenced earlier in the year when we played them in week 2. I said that at some point I thought Geno Smith was going to come back to earth. Maybe that wasn't week 2 because we killed him in week 2. So it must have been as we were talking about the standings when they were in first place in the NFC West. But I acknowledge that, yes, Geno Smith is having a far better season than I thought he would. Yes, the Seahawks were having a far better season than I predicted that they would. And I wasn't a believer in Geno Smith. He was cooking. Again, thanks to David Lombardi for these stats. First 4 weeks of the season, Geno Smith was 5th in expected points added per play. Since then, very much middle of the road at 18th. So I always thought that he'd return to the level of being an acceptable starting quarterback, and I think that's what he's showing. What are your thoughts on Geno Smith, and do you think he'll provide issues for our defense tomorrow night?
I mean, you're looking at completion percentage, he's first. You're looking at total yards, 6th. You're looking at touchdown percentage, 3rd. You're looking at quarterback rate, 3rd. I mean, like, he's still having an effective season. I mean, I know that his first 4 weeks were just out of this world. And so,
yes,
yeah, maybe you have fallen back. But if you look at the full season, which is what stats are based off of,
right,
he's top 5 in almost every single category. So, I mean, yeah, he's effective. DK Metcalf is a good receiver. I know that a lot of people, and we kind of quote unquote locked him up, but he's still effective in
very effective
touchdowns. Tyler Lockett has found his groove towards the middle of the season. He's going to be effective. We'll talk about that matchup later on.
Yeah.
The only thing is that you're looking at Kenneth Walker hasn't really got a lot of out of the backfield, right? And where our defense shines also is the way the linebackers are able to mitigate the running back, out of the backfield. So they're not having to do that. So will they focus more on Will Disley and the tight ends over the middle of the field rather than the running backs? That'll remain to be seen. We'll see how they'll scheme up the offense versus the defense. But both Metcalf and Lockett are home run threats. And if you've noticed in every single game, like the last 3 games, the Tampa Bay game, Mike Evans wide open. And we were lucky that play got called back. We've seen multiple other plays in other games. We're giving up deep balls by, Hufanga missing opportunities there. And so to say that they can't, launch off a 70, 60-yard play, it would be dumb in my opinion, because they can definitely do that with the receivers they have. I think it's going to be up to our cornerbacks to play lockdown football, because they're going to try to sling it, because that's their bread and butter there. Niners have a very good run game. Kenneth Walker is questionable this week. I think he will play, but ultimately,
it's
he's
trending towards him playing. Absolutely.
He's still nursing something. So I think that it's going to be strength on strength when it comes to the Niners defense versus the Seahawks. And I think it's going to be strength on weakness when it comes to the other way around.
I absolutely believe that the Niners will be able to contain Geno Smith and the Seattle passing offense. Not that they are anything to sneeze at. I do believe that they are very capable. You mentioned why, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. However, the way in which we match up with Mooney Ward, with Jimmy Ward, the Ward brothers, if you will, the safety tandem, and then the ability to get after Geno Smith, who is a mobile quarterback, but not a fast mobile quarterback. And so I anticipate that we get home with a few sacks in this one, and through that balance with the coverage, that we handle Seattle nicely. I will say that I think they're going to score some points on us. It's not going to be a shutout type of game, but we will get to score prediction at the end of the program before we end that one. In talking about that matchup, you teed it up nicely. The Jimmy Ward versus Tyler Lockett. Jimmy Ward, since coming back from injury, has been converted over into nickel cornerback. Initially, it looked like there were some bumps along the road. He has really come on. Against Tampa Bay with Brady, who throws to the slot all the time, he was targeted 18 times. He was solid. He allowed 10 catches, but for only 52 yards, which is 2.9 yards per target. Very acceptable. Kept everything in front of him. Sure tackler. And in addition, was ranked as the best run defender in the game by PFF as well. That matchup against Tyler Lockett, who's a prolific receiver. The effortless way with which he gets the toe taps on the sidelines in the end zone, just a physically gifted wide receiver, got the wheels on him, and credit to him for oftentimes choosing to go down. He has saved his body over the years by going down and going out of bounds. I've seen people criticize him for it. I think it just highlights how heady of a wide receiver he is. So of the two, I actually have just a little bit more fear of Tyler Lockett in this one, because I think there are ways they can scheme him up against our defense to get him open. DK Metcalf, I feel like, will be the focus for the defense. Both will eat, but I believe that the Niners defense will, at the end of the day, be victorious, and it'll be clear that we won that matchup.
I think so too. I think ultimately you're going to have some lockdown. I mean, if you run I think over the course of the game, the Niners will kind of lock down this. But like I said, all you need is the big play, and that's what you really got to worry about, is the big play there. Overall, I think we match up well with them, and it's just the big play ability that both the receivers have, and the willingness to throw the ball deep is that I think that's going to be the only thing that we need to watch out for, because we have been cooked a couple of times this year. And that's been the only blemish to the defense, right? Over the course of the game, the defense has locked down every single team besides the Chargers, but we have been giving up big plays, right? We gave up the 71-yarder to Miami. We gave up another big play. It should have given up a big play to Tampa outside the penalty. So that's the only thing that I'm really worried about there. Ward has already said that he feels a lot better playing safety than he does nickel. He's doing what he's been asked to do. He is a great run defender, so that goes well with him not being afraid to stick his nose into places there and being right. a pretty good tackler. And if you make a team one-dimensional and we're up in this game, then you can tee off like this guy, Oregon Life, is saying 2.5 sacks, right? Geno Smith, as well as he's being top in a lot of categories, he's also, I think, top 10 in the league in sacks, because he's trying to make extra plays with his legs and keep it going, and their offensive line isn't that great. So we need to get to him as a quarterback.
6300 had prompted that by saying, Rob Schuh, what's your prediction on how many sacks Bosa gets tomorrow? I'm going to go 2 on this one. We had Oregon Life, Bosa with 2.5 sacks. I'm going 2. Randon, what's your sack prediction for Bosa?
I think a little bit. I think under. I think probably a sack and a half is probably what I would say.
Sack and a half. Hey, I'll take it. Anything above a sack is gravy in my book. That's for sure.
He needs to get 2 or 2.5 because I think what we talked about, the same thing that we talked about last week, is his defensive player of the year is going to come down to him or Parsons, right?
Yeah.
And he needs to have considerably more sacks, because people are going to say, oh, Parsons plays linebacker and he has all these tackles and stuff like that. So I think he's going to need to have considerably more to win.
We need DPOY, Bosa, so don't let up. By the way, Rohan coming in here, just got to say hello to a fellow YouTube podcaster. Does a phenomenal job. If you don't follow him, you should. I'll always enjoy a collaboration with him. I know that he does great work. All right, let us see. Oh, we have one more I want to bring in. I love Sean 951 Niners confidence against Seattle, and I think he's spot on in the disparity of talent. I just have a feeling this one's going to be closer, but Sean was far more correct in his score prediction last week against Tampa Bay. He really did predict that blowout coming. So he says, Rob and Randon, have you watched the Seattle games the last 4 weeks? They suck. Beat the Rams with John Wolford and then went down to last seconds. We're going to smoke them. So I understand the premise behind why we should, and I agree with that premise. It's these division games where they often just don't shake out that way. And I have a feeling that Seattle in that environment will absolutely keep this one close. But let's transition that to our last topic here. And that is, winning the West, because that is what is at stake. With the win tomorrow, the Niners would have clinched the NFC West. And I saw a question earlier, meant to get to it, but didn't, that asked, hey, if the Niners do win and they clinch the West, should they start resting players? Do they have anything else that they're fighting for? We talked about it earlier, but to reiterate that here, we are only one game behind the Minnesota Vikings, and we have the tie break right now, which would be record within the NFC against fellow NFC teams. We currently have a better record against NFC teams than Minnesota does. So if we won against Seattle and Minnesota, let's say, lost this weekend, we'd be in a tie that would actually put us into that second seed. If we won out, we'd be guaranteed the second seed. In that scenario, I do think the Niners may continue to fight for the second seed. Otherwise, if we get behind one more game, yeah, I could see a situation where we are absolutely resting starters. But the question for this segment, Randon, is can the 49ers fight through the noise? I almost said the fucking Niners. I don't know why I wanted to say that, because I should just be happy. Can the 49ers fight through the noise, beat Seattle, and take home the NFC West tomorrow night? Is that what you think will happen? And what do you think the score is going to be?
Yeah, I think they win, because I'm not backing down from my my win streak here.
Yeah, you think we win out? I should just stop asking if you think they're going to win, because you've declared it.
Yeah, I think this game, and I think a lot of people in the chat are like, Seattle this, Seattle that, or whatever, and we're going to blow this team out. And like, wouldn't it be a boring show if I just came in here and just like pumped tires and was a hype man the entire time? No, I'm giving a probability here. I mean, I think that there is a chance, right? Because sometimes, what if they are one of the top turnover teams in football? What if Purdy comes back down to earth and they throw a couple picks and this game is closer than we think, right? Like, there is possibilities there, but do I think it's going to happen? No, I think the Niners are just rolling right now. They're just supremely rolling. I think the team wins by, over 10. So I'll probably say 24-10 in this game. I think they do get a touchdown, most likely because it's Seattle. It's going to be special teams related, but I think 24-10 will probably be the score here. I think to think that the Niners keep scoring over 30 by probability is probably unlikely. You know what? But I think they're doing well, man. Maybe, I don't know. What? 31-13. We'll go 31-13. I think
31-13, the
yeah.
official.
Yeah.
Lock it in. Lock it in. All right, I'm bringing in Sean 951 Niners comment before I answer mine, because I want to speak to it. He says division games this season won by 20, 15, 17, 18. Why would Seattle be a close game? I would argue that 3 of those matchups against the Rams and 1 against Arizona are dumpster fires, right? I mean, with what is transpiring with both of those teams, what they're dealing with, I just think that those are outlier games. When you go back and look historically at how we have played Seattle specifically, look at when we play in Seattle, that's a different level of division game. I like a comment that I saw coming in just a moment ago. Let me find that. Jason Lewis, sneakerhead here on the channel. This is it. Rob, playing at the link is different. We may be the better team and we have way more talent, but in Seattle, it will be a tight game. My definition of tight may not be what others are thinking. My score is a 2-score victory, so it's not as close as I'm saying, but I think throughout the first half, it will look like a close game, and I'll get to why that is. I'm going with the Niners running the ball early, running with success, allowing some passing yards. Clearly, Seattle is going to get the ball to DK Metcalf. They're going to get the ball to Tyler Lockett. I do think that they find the end zone in this one, but I believe the Niners win it at the end pretty handily. 27-13 is my prediction. Here's why I say I think it's going to feel a lot closer than that final score. I believe we hold them to 3 or less in the second half. So at halftime, I look for that score to feel a lot closer. And then as the Niners get rolling with the run game, it will turn into a 2-score affair. Got to get to Joey Mellon, sneakerhead here on the channel with the super chat. Says, how about Dre Greenlaw? He's a stud. I bought his jersey beginning of last season. He got hurt the next game. He's been a beast his entire 49er career, hoping he gets a couple all-pro votes. Yeah, he's not getting the respect he deserves in the Pro Bowl voting. Agree, he's a freaking beast. I was honestly a little perplexed at the decision early on to extend him when we did, man, what a freaking smart move by John Lynch at that point. That is turning into just genius level GMing, if you ask me. Got ahead of the production, signed him on for that extension, and 15 tackles last week. The guy is absolutely flying around the field, lighting it up. Have you been pleased with what you're seeing from Dre Greenlaw?
Yeah, I'll admit that I was a little wrong on the extension as well. I mean, nothing wrong with admitting an L. I think it's still a little pricey to pay him as a top 15 linebacker, but he's playing like it this season. So if he's giving that production, I like it. I mean, I really do. I mean, and you like the extension, getting out in front of it early. There's also exit options in the contract. So I like it a whole lot better now the way he's playing. The only thing that I've really had a problem with him is that he hasn't played to this level that he's played this season, and he's always been injured. So if this is the Dre Greenlaw that we're getting, then it's a no-brainer, and you're getting great value within that contract going forward. But the Niners seem to want to pay everybody, and you can't pay everybody, right? So there's going to be a casualty eventually somewhere, and we have yet to find out where that is.
We have yet to find out. All right, we got some score predictions. 63 Hunter won, 31-17 Niners. Sean 951 Niners going heavy on the Niners, 42-10. George coming in 35-7 Niners. Oregon Life saying we'll score over 30 points easy. I will be very pleased if we do. G-Bone Patron saying great show, guys. Thank you very much. Niners for life. It has been a great show. I'm very excited for the matchup tomorrow night. It's going to be an exciting, thrilling one no matter what. And all I care about is beating Seattle. I don't care if we beat them 3-0 or 56-0. Either way, I am going to be happy. I mean, a win in Seattle feels so sweet. Being there in 2019, I will say that one was sweet, but could have been sweeter. The review ruined it for me because I had to wait on my celebration. Instead of just bursting into elation, you had to be somewhat reserved. Like, oh my God, are they gonna overturn that? And then it was a delayed celebration, but so sweet to declare victory on Seattle's turf. They were on our freaking midfield, on our logo, eating turkey on Thanksgiving back in the day. We need to repay that favor by having a hat and shirt game on their turf in Seattle tomorrow, Randon. I will absolutely be celebrating that when it does happen.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like Phantom Limb, right? Like the ghost of Russell Wilson past is like still in my body. And like, I just need to forget that he's not there anymore. They're not the same team.
He's not himself anymore. He's a shadow of who he was. They're not the same team. It's a wild world we live in, sir.
It's upside down world there. And then, like I think the only other thing that you look at is Thursday Night Football has just been weird all year long. And so that's like the only other thing that kind of throws it in there. But I still think the way this team is rolling, will win pretty handily there.
I sure hope so. I like these score predictions. Amateur Draft Scout saying, have a good night, fellas. Appreciate that. Raphael 562 Niners congratulating us on the great show. Much appreciated. Alan Elizer giving the score prediction 35-14. He's a sneakerhead here on the channel. Cisco 1946, who had that epic I want to Brock and roll all night and Purdy every day. That was a phenomenal freaking comment. Cisco, I hope you came up with that because it is epic. Calls it 28-3 Niners. Oregon Life, very impressed by the show. And Raphael saying 24-16. Very close to my own prediction. They're at 27-13. Is what I'm locking it in as. Randon, always a pleasure doing a show here with you, my friend. As always, Randon's information is down below in the description of the video. Go follow the man on Twitter. Go subscribe to Cerberus Sports on YouTube. And look out for the Hockey Royalty podcast. Those links are down below as well. Absolutely a phenomenal show. I love the bickering with the chat. We got to close on the noodle arm. Damn it. It's been a good one, Randon. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
I'll come up with a new word for it next week. Maybe, I don't know. Like a code word.
Yeah, exactly. Something that flies under the radar. I love it. And I think this one comes in as all love, although it comes in as all live. We're doing it live. We are doing it live.
No, I appreciate the comments. Hey, right. That's what this is about. Like,
amen.
We like you guys in the chat, like going at me. I'm not always right. right? If I was, I would be a scout or a GM
right.
for an NFL team. So like, it's just what it is. We're having fun up here, and giving you guys some content. So.
Hey, we're talking sports. They're talking sports, and they're talking to us about sports. That's the way it should be. That's the way it rolls. I'm thrilled with the type of participation that we have in our chat here. It is a great group of people with strong opinions, and I would have it no other way, my friend. Great show tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Look for a post-game show tomorrow. Probably won't be able to fit in the pregame because it'll be right in the work day, but definitely look for that post-game, hopefully, celebration of the Niners winning the NFC West. Let's get this one. Let's go beat the Seahawks. Until then, cheers, faithful.